Please join me in welcoming Sandy Lane.
Thank you.
So people first, profit follows. Most businesses, you're all small business owners, what I hear is our goal is to make profits, okay? This is not an anti-profit conversation, but the reality is profits are a result. People are what create value. In every business, the key to success is value. Has anyone ever seen this quote before? I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. Let you read it. Anybody? Show of hands, anybody seen this before? So I get his quotes through email, and this one came through, and it was a little blast from the past. 100% of employees are people. 100% of your customers are people, and 100% of your investors are people. If you do not understand people, you do not understand business. When I got this, I'm like, that's my aha moment. Everybody has their business story or their story of something that didn't work out, and I had a partner, his name is Fergus, and I will introduce you to him soon, but Fergus and I had a philosophical difference. We were co-founders of a large startup in Omaha, Nebraska together, and Fergus's core belief was, if we take care of the profits, the people will follow. My core belief was, if we take care of people, the profits will follow. We clashed from day one. I saw this, I couldn't help myself. I put it on LinkedIn. It didn't just resonate with me. That LinkedIn post ended up having over 13,000 engagement in it, many meaningful conversations about how this stood true in everyone's business. Going backwards. But what I want to talk about is, whenever I bring up people versus profits, a lot of times people will go to, it's an either or. I'm a business that takes care of people, or I'm a business that works the profits, the bad guy, the good guy. But if I'm taking care of my people, I'm not going to make a profit. It is not an either or. What we're talking about today isn't an either or conversation. The reality is there's an intersection. If you understand people and take care of people, you have to be a successful company by having profits. The intersection is value. It always comes back to value. Every person in your ecosystem is looking for value. What comes after that? It's followed by profit. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The other thing is, I want to make sure, one thing, when I talked about what my keynote today, one thing that kept coming up for people is, oh, you're going to talk all about employees. It's a soft skill, the soft skills of people. Understanding people is not a soft skill, and it's not just employees, it's all the people in your ecosystem. One of the comments that was made on LinkedIn, people leadership is not sentimental, it's structural. When leaders invest in clarity, trust, and capability, performance follows, it naturally scales. When we talk about people first, everyone in this room, you're not dealing with just your employees. Every small business is dealing with investors, potentially owners, co-owners, community, customers, employees, vendors, consultants, all the professionals. This ecosystem is built of all of the people that has needs and understanding and are looking for values themselves. Your business is built on the collaboration of individuals, each with distinct values and decisions that collectively impact your business. So the resolution we're talking about isn't all about, hey, take care of people, that's easy, I just can't focus on profits, I'm going to look at people. Every person in your ecosystem has individual desires. So I have a question for everyone here. Who has worked in a company or known an organization that has expressed, we are people-led, we are people-driven? Okay? But then, all their decisions are based off of profits. Has anybody been in that situation or known a company like that? So it's very easy to say and declare, we're people-driven. That's what we do. But the reality is you got to act it. You got to live it every day. I like to use this in anything that has to do with the human and how culturally, how day-to-day decision-making is built. Every individual is looking for life satisfaction. Their gauge, My husband and I, Garrett, we talk about what's your happiness factor, what's your life fulfillment factor, scale to 1 to 10. Every person in your ecosystem, every employee, every customer is somewhere on that scale. 3 biggest things that impacted are relationships, finances, and well-being. Then you have to put in there, so they're looking, you look at that, every time you're looking in life, you're trying to check all of your gauges. And at the same time, you're working those gauges to get the highest happiness factor, and you have 2 things happening up at the top. You've got time limitations, and you've got uncontrollables. Everybody knows, we've been told by the best coaches, control the controllables, right? But then they're the uncontrollables. So the people in your ecosystem that you're putting first, they're all dealing with these things. And then we want life experiences, we want purpose, we want identity. So every business foundation is built with players, all these people that are managing those gauges. The Harvard study, which has been going on for 85 years plus, strong supportive relationships are the #1 predictor of long-term well-being, success, and life satisfaction. That always trumps what people are paid, the achievements they can list, and what titles they've had. So let's go through that different ecosystem. Let's look at, I'm going to introduce you to Fergus. So I talked about I was from Omaha, and Liz kindly talked about me being a prior CPA, CFO. I was a CPA at a big accounting firm in Omaha. I was there for over 20 years. During that time, through my relationships, I built a lot of personal and professional goodwill and a lot of experience. I worked with small business owners, entrepreneurs. I ran the client and accounting services, and I ultimately ran the healthcare department. Through that, I meet Fergus Hoban on the far right. He was my business partner. With him, we founded a big startup called Think Whole Person Healthcare. It looks pretty big on paper here, or on the vision. If you look, what we ended up doing, so I met Fergus in 2012. In 2012, we shook hands, we became co-founders, and we got going, boots to the ground, to build the big startup together. What we did is we had to raise $45 million of capital. We recruited physicians, many of them, 32 physicians, many of them were my clients, people that I knew. A big thing that I offered was not just my expertise, but goodwill of who I knew in town. And we had 350 people the first day we opened our doors. That building you're seeing was 150 square feet, and it was 7 floors. Now you're saying, what does this have to do with small business? The reality is, the story that I tell you is a really big story that's built on very small decisions, and it was a combination and collaboration of small businesses. What I hear from businesses every day is, we want to scale, we want to grow, we want to get bigger. Everybody jumped on board with this. What more could you ask for? We had independent audiologists. We had not just primary care physicians, but we brought in optometry, pharmacy. We actually hired a chef that had his own business. We basically put together 50 businesses so we could be a one-stop shop for all the patients, for all of our customers. Everybody was happy. Right there, Fergus, we're putting the flag up, and inside, the most beautiful building. They called the building itself, it was built by HDR, and the design concept said the building itself was a medical instrument to serve the patient. Everything we did and said to the outside world was, we are people-led, it is all about the people mission. And truly, what we were trying to do, every one of us, was bring together a format that we are serving the patients, that everybody won if we had healthier patients. So let's talk about customers. People first, profits follow. So that was our building when we were building it. We will build it and they will come. Everybody was excited. We've got this huge patient base. They all spend money. They spend money, so now the goal was, let's bring all the money into Think. And they love our doctors, we have the relationship. What we underestimated was that at the end of the day, when your customers make a choice, it needs to be value-centered. So what happened was, they followed their doctors, but they were perfectly happy. We had a full-scale pharmacy. They were perfectly happy getting their pharmaceuticals at the grocery store and at Walgreens. Fergus would say, oh, Walgreens doesn't know how to run a business. We'll do so much better. He was multiplying the numbers and the profits, saying every spend will get 80% of those patients. Those are our profits. We're going to be bigger than the Vatican. He sold that to everyone in his pitch deck. Okay? And guess what? 80% of our patients said, I like my service at City Market. I like, I'm good with Kroger's. It works for me. Walgreens, I travel a lot. I really don't want to work with a private pharmacy. I like to have a chain. So what we didn't listen to, and so we spent thousands of dollars on customer focus groups. So it wasn't going into this with no idea, but the customer at the end of the day has to have a reason to make a change. How many of you have had the best idea? On paper, you ran the financials, oh, this is going to be the next best thing. We already have the customer base. I mean, it looks great on paper, and then the customer didn't buy in. Basically your customer said, I don't really like that. Have you ever had anything that looks great on paper and then it doesn't go? Yeah, I have. And patients, customers want to have value for what they get. Scape, and I'm looking at Heather over here, we had a book conversation with Eric Ries. Did anybody read The Lean Startup about 10 years ago? Anybody familiar with Eric? He has another book coming out in May. And that book is Uncorruptible. And it sounds like it's going to be awesome. But when we had this conversation with Eric, he said, once you make metrics your North Star rather than the needs of your customer, you will fail. And we can run the spreadsheets and we can do all those things, but we have to listen to the needs of our customers. The big one, employees. Employees have needs. Their needs go far beyond what you pay them. It's not how much you're paying them, but how you're paying them. Gallup does a lot of studies, and what Gallup is always finding is when people answer what is most gratifying to them at work, what's most gratifying to them at work is things that add to their quality of life and their life satisfaction. They want to get paid so they can live their lifestyle, so that they can have affordable housing, so they can do things that add to their life experiences. They want to be valued. They want creativity. They want social circles. They want all of these things, and a lot of times, people need a living wage, and they're not looking for, it's not the minimum wage, it's the living wage for them. One of the comments on the LinkedIn post, people first leadership compounds interest over time. I've seen it in retention. Because putting people first is how you treat them, how you include them on the team. Have you ever heard somebody say, I gave my heart and soul to a company because they had a great 401k? No. What they're saying is they put their heart and soul in a company when that company is taking care of them, that is listening to them, when they feel like they're part of a team, that they're engaged. When there are employee layoffs, you would think that the biggest drop in life satisfaction would be their loss of wages, but that's not the case. The biggest drop, when you go back to the gauges, is their loss of identity, their loss of the social circles, their loss of their experience of working there, and what left them was the social ties, the purpose, and that negative impact of how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis. At Think what happened, we hired great people. We brought the teams with us that came from these businesses. And we said, we're bigger, we're better. We're going to have the best, most lucrative benefit package. Because with those 350 people, about half of them we needed to hire new. So a lot of people will think, when I talk about people first, profits follow, that means the owners are making sacrifices to make sure that their employees can have the most lucrative benefits packages. You need to have something you can support, because stability trumps the extras every day. Every day. And you always have to make decisions that you can be sustainable. What happened at Think is when those numbers didn't hit for the pharmacy right away, we were overstaffed and we needed to make some changes, and we did layoffs. And what happened with those layoffs, these people were sold on a dream. They created teams. We did these great things. The patients loved it. The patients loved it, but we just weren't having the numbers because we oversold the profits. On that day of the layoffs, Fergus was in a conference room lamenting. We had whiteboards in our beautiful building and rerunning the numbers on how much he was going to save with the employee layoffs and what our new break-even point was going to be with the pharmacy and how many new physicians we'd have to recruit to come in. And he's running the numbers. And I went in and, Fergus, you got to go out and rally the troops. You can't hide in here. And he eventually did go out after we let people, literally, you know how that works. It's never fun letting somebody go because HR and legal is always going to tell you, take away their email, say the least that you can. It is the most, you would think you put handcuffs on them when they left the building. And what was said to me when one person left, it was somebody I recruited, their comment to me was, every person in this organization was required to hear the owner's pitch before they came in. It was a requirement. You had to sit for 2 hours and hear our mission statement and our pitch and everything we were doing. And she said, where was he when we left? Where was he when he left? Nowhere to be found. So those layoffs, what happened? Culture, morale, everybody rallied toward the patient. We did what we could to work together. But incidents like that, that's when real leadership shows up. I just had to use this one. I love this. Yoga is great, but you can't yoga your way out of structural or cultural issues. Okay? Everybody having a beer room, a yoga room, having all the perks in the world for benefits. If you have cultural and structural issues, if your leaders are not leading and talking the talk of what they're doing, you are not going to yoga your way out of that. One last word on employees. When I'm talking about employees and people first and profits follow, that doesn't mean there are not expectations of employees. There are expectations. People want expectations. They want to know, what do I need to do to be valued? What do I need to add value? What do I need to do to help be part of this mission? They want that. Expectations are great. The latest study from Gallup showed that 22% of the US workforce, their fear on AI and their concerns at work are due to they have no idea, it has not been communicated to them by the leaders how they're going to integrate AI or what their plans are for the future, just keeping them in the loop. So they are worried. Their biggest thing is just lack of communication. Even if it is, we're taking the first steps, part of the leadership is if your people are feeling like they might not have a job, remember the graph on stability and what people need. They just want to know, what is the plan and how am I part of it? So financial stakeholders. Remember how I said we raised that $45 million? We thought we were so good. We did it with one investor. Guess who the investor was? Big insurance. How can anything go wrong? Right? How can anything go wrong? So I love this photo. Here's Fergus and I. When we raised the $45 million and we had it in the bank, this building got knocked down so we could build the next building. Okay? We were celebrating because Fergus said, I have given that pitch so many times. We've got the doctors, we've got everything. We just have to open the doors. Premature celebration. Because the people that the 350 people that had to walk in that first day of work, all new technology, many new relationships, everything was new to them. We had customers that were coming in and saying, where's my doctor? I don't know where my nurse is that I'm used to. We had a very critically ill and elderly population. They were high risk. One of our biggest part of our model was to help the sickest and least healthy to have longer and healthier lives. They don't like change. So we underestimated about every person in the equation. And when we talk about financial stakeholders, investor relationship, lender relationship, bank relationship, it is all about transparency and trust. Every time we had to change or layoffs, the first phone call should have been to our stakeholders. The conversation should have been with our employees. But instead, we were whiteboarding that stuff out and we were coming up with a new plan that we were going to chase the next profit and rectify things and everybody would be happy. Frank, he's a lender. He saw this, so everybody came from every angle. The same applies in lending. Take care of people first, and the numbers will take care of themselves always. With your professionals or with your banks, with your investors, there's a lot of choices on who you work with. All things being making good sense for you when it comes to rates and things that impact the profits, the number one factor needs to go back to relationships. And I would tell you, if you say it's too tight, this is the relationship, but it's a bad deal for me going with the other alternative, you should look at what you're doing and say, do we need to scale back? Is it too big of an endeavor? If you have not given yourself enough wiggle room, the chances are high that you're not going to be successful. In order to be a successful business, you need to be agile, you need to be able to pivot. The more you promise profits, and the more you promise them to the people you owe money to, or you have promised what you're going to give them back, the least flexibility you have in decision making. And that is back to you're bound to fail. Partners. Everybody's been talking about partners here today. When I talk about partners, we're talking about your professionals, your vendors, your community. This whole conference is built on those great partnerships. SBDC, Chamber of Commerce, SCAPE. We've got so many great people that come together and help each other out. They mentor each other. They support each other. Local first. We buy from each other. We help each other out. One of the biggest mistakes I find with partnerships for professionals, we're small business owners, is they do everything themselves because they can't afford to bring somebody in, but then they wait too long, okay? It's that I finally am making enough money that I can hire I'm gonna hire the good CPA, I'm gonna get that bank that I want, I'm gonna move things over, and then they say I'm gonna wash my hands of it because I've got all these great people. Business owners are the ones who know the story of your business. Your financials and all those metrics we look at for profits, nobody knows that better than you. Maybe the CPAs, the banks, the lawyers can say it much more eloquently, but it's the business owners that look at it and say, this isn't right. That doesn't make sense. You need to align what's happening on paper, all those things that align the profits, with the story that's being told to make sure you own that. One of the think story with the bank, we went with so this is a partner and a lender. We ended up going with a national bank, so we went with big insurance for our investor, and then we went with national lender for a 1/4 percentage rate. But you saw that big building, okay? The big building, so the investor helped with our startup money, the lender helped with our equipment, our building, our physical assets, right? That 1/4 interest point made a ton of difference. But guess what happened? The minute we weren't making our numbers, they needed an audit. Everything that they wanted for compliance and covenants, we almost needed a full-time compliance team to give them every number that they needed on a daily basis. And what we saved in the 1/4 percentage point went down the tube almost immediately with the professional fees, the audit cost, and what it took to demand that. We built this big building. As Fergus was chasing profits, he was very worried that somebody was going to duplicate what we did. We're going to be the best. We lived in secrecy. Any person we talked to had to sign an NDA and not tell anybody what we were doing. He fought with the hospitals. They're dumb, we're smart. Walgreens, terrible. Bottom line is, at the end of the day, 2 things happened. Either, number one, nobody knew what we were doing, okay? Because they couldn't help us if they wanted to, because nobody was allowed, including employees. We couldn't talk about anything. And then the second thing was, he created a community of isolation rather than collaboration. When you're working in a community, your number one asset is to work with each other, with the patients and everyone else. So the ties that could have supported didn't happen. Now we're going to talk about the owners. Sometimes the owners, sometimes you're by yourself, sometimes you have a partner. Coming from Omaha, I love my Warren Buffett. The great investment you can make is in yourself. So often, Entrepreneurs, small business owners, you're taking care of everyone. So I'm showing you that ecosystem. You're like, oh, I got to pay more attention to my vendors. Yep, got the employees, got this. You got to start with yourself. Okay, how are you coming out on this? How are your relationships suiting you? And I would ask everyone here in the audience, think about all the relationships in your ecosystem, and is there any one person, one decision, one entity that you can invest more time in? And are there some that you might need to divulge yourself of? Are you working towards something that is creating growth and value? And what are the trade-offs? Because every business decision you make, there's a trade-off. You're making a trade-off. You're making a trade-off of your time, what you can do for experience, taking the time to come to this. There are trade-offs that go with everything. So you as the owner and taking care of self in your ecosystem is going to be the best thing. Being mindful, a lot of the different sessions so far and talks that I've heard and talked to are about being that mindful leader, that owner. Are you taking that time for yourself? At the very beginning, I talked about Fergus and I having philosophical differences. And somebody asked me, I would use that, taking the high road. Hey, you left. We were together for 3 years. We started in 2012. And in 2015, we launched. And I stayed through the end of the year. And at the end of the year, I actually went to one of our real estate investors, which was a big company that aligns with Warren Buffett and some of those. And I went up to the top office and I wanted to talk to him because I felt like as a co-founder and an owner that I had recruited everyone to come and work as part of our initiative. And it was up to me to save everyone else. That I need, no matter what I was going to rectify this. I was going to make it right. And his comment to me was, are all the people around you, are they children or adults? I said, well, they're adults. And he said, they all made a decision. So you have to think about yourself. Have you been honest and transparent with everyone? Yes, I've been honest and transparent with everyone. So I left in December, and then somebody asked me the question. I would use my running line, my standard words of, why did you leave Think? I said, I left Think because Fergus and I had philosophical differences. I'd stop at that. And one person asked me, when did you know you had philosophical differences? So this picture, we're signing the papers. After we get the money, everything is set up. I 100% knew we had philosophical differences. When you have a partner in business, when you have any of your relationships, if you're allowing them in your ecosystem, it's like a marriage, and you're not going to change them. And if you can't work out your philosophical differences before, it's not going to work itself out, okay? It's at what point do you either step away or you don't sign on the line. So this picture was taken because it was going to be part of the book for all the great things that we were going to do. And core value alignment goes way, way beyond profits, making profits. And my belief with him and my belief in him, he came from Ireland. Fergus is Irish, and they don't have the complexities with healthcare that we have. Fergus firmly believed that he could take what he did in Ireland and bring it over here. Consumers are different. Everything's different in our human ecosystem and what we deal with in the mindset, correct? So my thought was, hey, if we can get everything aligned here and we can make the profits. So maybe I bought in a little bit too. Maybe if we get a little bit of the profits, we'll test this out. And even when that happened, it's hard to make a complete reversal after you have disappointed people, when you have broken the trust and integrity. Your whole ecosystem of people in your business are now not believing what you say. Fergus would call it ham and egging. I'm like, that's what we call, that's just being untruthful. So I'm going to tell you the good news about Think. So the story of Think is their 10-year anniversary. So Fergus left very dramatically, I think about a year after I did. But Think just celebrated their 10-year anniversary, and they did have the successes we were looking for. Okay, the pharmacy left, Again, it ended up that the customers didn't really care if they had a pharmacy in the office. The convenience of having that didn't do a lot for them. The pharmacy left, but our baseline model of having patients be healthier and taking out waste in the healthcare system did happen. It took 10 years for it to happen because they had to unwind. When decisions don't work and you keep following the profits, you have to unwind those things, right? And that takes even more time. So it's this recurring role of what you could have been doing because the profits are going to take you on a spin. And if you're trying to agile and pivot, you go back to the people 100% of the time. But right now, Think is the #1 ACO, that's an accountable care organization in Nebraska, and it's #2 in the nation for saving costs for patients, for very sick. And that means you save costs because they're not going to the hospital as much. Hospital admissions are down. It ended up, what happened and what we believed in did come to be, but the roadblocks all happened with chasing the wrong thing in the beginning. So investing in people and creating value is the strongest business sustainable growth strategy. It's what you need to do. The focus is on the value, the focus is on the people, and investing in those will have the dividends and the ROI because business success does not come in the quick profits. The business success comes in recurrent sustainability and making sure that what you're delivering on and the people with whom you're delivering it with are having that sustainable growth and joining that with you. So I'm going to leave this. We're going to go on to our breakout sessions, all the networking. Think about people either in the room, and I'm going to voice what Elizabeth has already said, what Zachary has said, is find those people in your ecosystem or that should be in your ecosystem and make sure that you are investing in those relationships. You're seeking out the ones that matter. You're hearing and listening what they have to say. And then the sustainable profits and the ongoing value will continue. Thank you.